Hi everyone, Brian Hotzik here with NCSI. Today I want to walk you through Ivanti's Neurons for ITSM platform. It really is a great service management platform built on ITIL principles. Those ITIL principles are here today and we're going to walk through them. Things like incident, knowledge, service, catalog, etc. But what NCSI does is we consider ourselves a little bit of ITIL pragmatists. We're going to help adapt these to what makes sense for your business. A good example of that is things like release management. A lot of organizations aren't necessarily ready for release management. It might be a little bit too much burden for them when they get into change management. So we might adapt that and tweak it to your exact business needs. We've helped out thousands of customers. We've been an Ivanti partner for almost 20 years now. And we understand what that journey is for our customers, that it's not just buying a tool and turning it on and that's it. No, it's iterating, it's improving over time, it's improving our maturity associated with it. We're talking about our service management platform today, but it's actually based on our enterprise service management platform that also includes asset management. We're not going to dig into too much of that today. We've got other videos that we've done here that talk about asset management, things like discovery and inventory or understanding the true life cycle, how much we're paying for these various things. We'll just stay focused on the ITSM side of the house today. We're going to show you what's called out of the box. That's important. It is what the vendor gives you when you first initially purchase it. Otherwise, they're showing you, things that they've built up on top of it that you're not going to get. So it's important to ask for out of the box when we're looking at demonstrations of that. We're going to show you both from the user's perspective and from the administrator's perspective so you can see how we interact with this tool. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to look at this from several different perspectives. For example, we might need to look at it from a CIO's perspective and care about, big picture stuff, reports and dashboards and so forth, or someone who runs the service desk, a service desk manager, and seeing what the team looks like and what the overall support infrastructure looks like, or even an individual analyst. How do they respond to individual tickets and so forth? So let's go ahead and jump in. Now, this is our Neurons for ITSM platform. Now, you'll notice a couple of interesting things. First of all, you see that it's all web-based. This can be either run on-premise or our recommendation up in the cloud. Makes it a little bit easier to manage. You don't have to worry about upgrades and databases and kind of things like that. But ultimately, it's your choice how you implement that. But 100% web-based, so very easy to manage. Everything we do is going to be role-based, though. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner here, I can give roles to my various users. And those roles affect everything. They affect my permission settings. They affect what I see, how we brand things. Here's a very good example of that. Do you see right here we have CI? That stands for configuration item. Now, someone who's been doing ITSM for a very long time, they totally get it. They understand that. Oh, a CI configuration item. Yeah, no problem. But that's a little bit cryptic. What if we had someone logging in from the accounting department and they need to know other kinds of functions? We could switch over to an asset manager role as an example and see that that actually changes from the word CI, and now it's going to be called something like a hardware asset. So we can even rebrand what the user sees and make sure that it's just for them and there's not extraneous information that we're kind of distracting them with. So let's switch back over to administrator. I kind of want to have all the rights and privileges here. Now I want to walk you through kind of some typical life cycles of different workflows that we're going to have associated with this. So first of all, let's start at our home over here. You can see I've got a dashboard right here. I'm looking at my admin dashboard. We've got a lot of them out of the box. A lot of demonstrations can be done on things that are not out of the box. Those are special configurations that have been made over the top of it. You just need to be aware of that so you don't feel like you are baited and switched. Showed a great fleshed out version of a presentation of a product, and then when you purchase it, it's a much more slimmed down version of it. So, make sure to ask for an out-of-the-box demonstration. I will tell you when I'm showing you something that's not out of the box. But as we scroll through here, here's all my different dashboards that I have. You as the administrator, you get to control what dashboards are seen and whether you let the user create their own dashboards or display their own dashboards, things like that. Let's go take a look at the Service Desk Manager dashboard for a second. You can see some interesting tidbits we have, like we have alerts up here at the top if we wanted to make an announcement out to our analysts. I can see my team's active incidents over here, unassigned self-service incidents, top 5 services with active incidents, etc. Lots of different dashboards that I can go create. And there's a whole pile of them, as well as I can click on the all dashboards here, see every dashboard in the database, as well as go make my own. Oh yeah, I want to create my own dashboard. I want to have, it be a row format, and I want to have a chart or a graph or something like that. So very easy to go and create your own versions of your dashboards if you want to. So Let's go take a look at incident. Incident is usually the most common module that we start with, and that is, our break fix. Hey, someone calls up, they're having an issue, and we need to solve their problem. So let's take a look at this display view that we have here first. As you scroll through here, you're going to see some interesting little tidbits. Let's talk about some of them. Number one, do you see this crown right there? That's a VIP. Our system supports the ability to have VIPs. Maybe we need to have a different SLA for those VIPs. If it's an executive, if it's the CEO, we potentially want to have a faster response time associated with that. So there I have a categorization of VIP. If you see over here on the side, we've got a lightning bolt. That's called a major incident or a master incident, depending on just your nomenclature. An example of that is a building being on fire, a house being on fire is an incident, right? But the whole neighborhood being on fire is a major incident. Hey, it's a big deal. It's impacting lots of people. There should be probably a big focus on that. You can see a lot of these are in black, but some of them are in red. Why is that? Well, I've breached the SLAs on the ones in red. I went and created it. I met with the business and I promised that I would help them out within, X business hours, and I have not met that SLA. So it's going to come up and tell me it's red. If I wanted to have it shoot off an email when those SLAs were breached or come up with an escalation point or something like that, the system completely supports that. Over here on the left-hand side, you see I've got a little blue line. The blue line is interesting because the concept behind that is that's like an unread message to me personally. The incident is assigned to me, and I have communicated with the user. Maybe I went to the user and I said, hey, please reboot. That'll fix your problem. The user went and did that. They replied back and said, that did not fix my problem. So that is an unread message specifically for me, not just an unread message in general. So I need to go and take a look at those. All right, so if I want to find an incident, I got a handy search box up here at the top. I can just start typing in. If I want to say, search for Marcia, for example, that's going to come back and show me all of the incidents that, have the username of Marcia in it or reference Marcia, or I could even do an and in there. So I could say, Marcia and email. So now I'm going to see every time that the user, Marcia, was saying something about email. But also I can go up here and choose from these boxes. So this is pretty handy. If I want to say things like, okay, I want to know all of my open incidents, and I want to know when they are priority 1, 2, or 3 on my team or something like that. So very easy to go create these, and then I can save them as a saved search. If I've gone in here and say, oh, this is, open P1, 2, 3 on my team or something like that. I can now save this saved search, and it's going to be available to me up here in the top. So again, just like those dashboards, you as the administrator are going to create these saved searches ahead of time and provide them to your users, and then potentially let your users go create your own versions of that. So very easy to go find that. All right, so up here at the top, you can see I've got a couple of different options for creating incidents. And so I've got a little blue drop-down arrow next to new. If I click on that, you can see I can open up a template. Templates are very, very handy. You've heard lots of times from an analyst. They'll say things like this. It took me longer to log the incident in the tool than it did to fix the actual problem. So we want to create a lot of little tricks and time savers for your analysts to do. That way they are going to be more likely to use the tool. So a template is a common problem. You like an account lockout domain. You know what? That happens all the time, right? That's usually number one issue that we have on a service desk. So let's have a template with all of the fields pre-populated and everything's kind of worked out ahead of time. Again, just start thinking about your versions of what your templates are going to be. This is just get you thinking of ideas out there. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go create a brand new blank one. So I'm just going to click on actually the words new. So this is going to open up our incident form. And again, remember, this is my version of the out-of-the-box demo. Yours is going to look differently. You're going to probably try and customize this. Maybe you need to add fields or subtract fields or change the flow or the format of this page. That's great. We're going to help you design that. Up here at the top, I can go and put in the customer name. As you can see, when I start typing it in, it's going to go search through my directory sources. Pull in information, probably something like Active Directory or Azure Active Directory or whatever kind of directory source that you have. We're going to pull that information in. Having rich directory data is really good to us. You'll see a little bit later why I care about that, but having their phone number, understanding who their manager is, what department that they're in, all these things are going to help me with decisions I can make inside of workflows. So here you can see I've got April Stone. That's our user we're going to open the incident on behalf of. In my example, maybe I just received a phone call from this user and I'm helping them out. Notice that I've got an open on behalf of someone else. This is something we've added from the out of the box. Quick little feature that you can add. Maybe this user doesn't have a computer. Maybe it's an executive and they don't want to open up the incident. There's several scenarios where you'd want to have a second person on that incident and opening on behalf of them. So we have the option to go and check that box if we want to. Here in the summary, this is the actual problem that I'm having. I'm going to say the user's getting printer error 57. Now, something really interesting just happened there when I typed that into the summary box. Again, you remember what I said about analysts complaining about the tool? I just spoon-fed them information. This was called a related item search. On the right-hand side, the user did not have to ask for this, but we went and spoon-fed to them several pieces of information. What do you know? What a coincidence here. We happen to have a knowledge base article for this exact problem. So I was able to go and give them that information. So we can search through knowledge base articles. We can search through problem databases, other incidents that other users are having that we haven't got around to making a major incident associated with, and maybe changes that we're doing inside the system. You as the administrator control what related items that we search through. This is our default, just kind of through everything for the most part, but you could refine that down if you want. If you have a resolution, you can notice, like for example, this one right here, I've got a link, which means take the steps inside of this knowledge base article and send it out to the user. But I've also got link and resolve. Take the information out of the knowledge base article, put it into the incident, send that information out to the end user, and resolve the incident. So with one single click, I could finish and wrap up this entire incident if this particular problem happens to solve my issue. In our example, we'll just pretend that it didn't. So let's kind of keep going on. All right, I'm going to put in the description, printer error 57 when printing a check or something like that, whatever our problem is going to be. Up there at the top, what's our service? We follow the model of ITIL that everything is based on a service. So maybe they're using the printing service as an example. What category does that fall under? Oh, it's going to be an error message or a how-to or a performance. Whenever you see a drop-down box like this, you realize that there's a lot of questions that you're going to have. Again, these are out of the box. Maybe you don't want to have this many categories. We're going to sit down with you at the beginning as part of a workshop, and we're going to help you decide what categories are going to be. A lot of people, when they're transitioning over to a tool like this, it gives them a chance to say, hey, let's clean house a little bit. We've got a little bit of junk outstanding there. This, references to old operating systems or applications we don't use anymore. Let's clean those and scrub those up at that time. So we decided this is just going to be an error message. What do I think the urgency and impact? I think it's low. It's not that big of a deal, right? But we're going to help you set the priority matrix here. You can see with an impact of low and an urgency of low, my priority has been set to a 5. Not the most important thing in the world, right? Is the status active or logged or whatever? Yep, it's active. As soon as I tell the customer something, maybe I'm waiting on the customer to go reboot, or I need to wait for a third party to replace a part or come fix the printer or something like that. But we're just going to kind of leave it at active right now. What team is the one handling it? In this case, it's the service desk, or maybe you had a dedicated print management team. You could do that. And who's going to be the owner. Oftentimes you would set this to automatically, set to yourself, right? So that the person opening up the incident is automatically the owner, but at the end of the day, that's your guys' choice on how this works. And then what source did it come in? By default, phone makes the most amount of sense when I click new on the analyst view. But if we're receiving it from an email, which is an incredibly popular way to receive incidents, we'll have that automatically set over to email. All right, let's go ahead and save this incident. We've kind of put in enough information in for now. So we're going to save it, and then we're going to refresh it here, and we're going to notice a couple of interesting things have happened here so far. So first of all, up here at the top, you can see our response target has been met. Why? Because in our example, I'm on the phone with April right now, and so I have responded to her issue within the appropriate SLA time. I did it essentially instantly, and our SLA was a couple of hours or whatever it was. However, you can see my resolution target has started. The business has given me 1 day to do this before that first escalation kicks in. So I need to start working on this problem within 1 business day. If it's not working, I need to be aware of it. It might, email my manager or whatever kind of escalation path that I want to create. We've got lots of logic in the tool around things like hours of operation and so forth. So if I want the clock to be running 24/7 or I want it to stop at the end of our business day, that's perfectly fine for us. Over here, you can see we have linked over to our assets. Now, this is arguably a big debate. We can have a good philosophical debate on the right way to do this. There's several different ways. When we start adding asset information into our incidents, it really enriches our information. It's trying to get to that, utopian goal of saying, well, what is more or less reliable? Are my HP laptops having more problems than my Dell laptops? Well, how would I know that if I don't link those assets into the incidents that I'm having? So in my example, we went and changed the out of the box, and we said, why don't we automatically link the assets that are assigned to that user as part of that incident? The downside to that is, well, think about it. I see a couple different devices in here. Are all of these having the problem? Well, not necessarily. As a matter of fact, maybe they're not having it. So I might need to go and unlink these assets if they are not having the problem. So the alternative is doing it manually, which they would just click the link button right here. By default, it's going to show you everything in our organization. That's probably not practical. It's going to be too hard for them to search. So for a lot of customers, what we do is we end up putting an automatic filter on this that would be based on, what assets that user owns instead of kind of everything in the organization. So they would just say, yep, that's it. That's the printer, that's the router, that's the PC, whatever that's having the problem today. Next to that, you can see we have an attachment section here. Now I can hit attach and I can open up and go browse and find my file, but no, I am a lazy analyst. I hate extra clicking. I just want to have my snipping tool over, take a screenshot here, and I want to hit the paste button right here. And I just hit paste, and now I have a screenshot uploaded to the system. Now, I just saved, 15, 20, 30 seconds by not having to go save and file, open, and so forth. Again, little small things get great improvement over time when I have thousands of tickets going through this system. So I've gone and added an attachment right there. Here I could add something to the journal. Something I could add would be things like, maybe I want to send out an email. Email is a very common way to communicate inside of the platform. We support that. So if I want to send out an email, not a problem. I can say, please reboot down here in the bottom if that's what I'm asking the user to do. But a couple of interesting tidbits up here at the top. First of all, notice it's going to go out to that user right there. It's going to come from me, but I could change that if I wanted to. I could add someone as a CC. So if I just wanted to go and say, oh yeah, let's add this additional user, I could do it that way. But more likely than not, let's go grab it from the address book. Do you remember how I said, if you bring us over rich data from your directory service, we can leverage that? Well, notice that we have a lot of things that contacts are linked to the incident via. You can see I've got a customer right here. Maybe there's someone who's their manager, like an approval, or the team that's doing this. So very easy to go and add individual users or individual teams. Maybe the entire accounting department needs to be known, be told about this particular problem that we're having, or whatever makes sense. Again, you can also just type an email address in if I want to send it to an additional person, even here in the BCC field. If I want to, I can publish it to the web. I can check this box right here. It's going to show up in self-service. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later, but it would show up in our portal saying, please go do this particular step or this problem or whatever. I'll go ahead and just hit save to that. So now that email has been sent out, and the user is going to receive that, and we can then communicate back and forth. And then it's been added to the journal. It shows a little picture of me or a representation of me with luxurious long hair. And gives us a track record in case this incident needs to be passed on to someone else or something like that. I can also go and add a note in here. Maybe I want to say, this user calls about this problem every week, and I want to not publish it to the self-service. I want this to be an internal note that is just for consumption of the service desk. I don't necessarily want this information to go out, or maybe you do. You can just check that box. Perhaps you need to go and track the time. Some customers track time that we're spending on incidents. I can say, yep, I spent 30 minutes doing some troubleshooting with this user so that I can understand how much effort we spend on this. And then, what the source was. Maybe I was chatting with them and I need to write down the notes of that particular chat. All right, so that's kind of the first initial view of creating an incident. You're going to see lots of kind of peripheral items around here. Things like over here, we've got our action buttons. Now, these can do anything you want. We'll get into a little bit more about what they mean and how they work when we start talking about workflows. But oftentimes you need to go and do something, right? Maybe you need to talk to Azure Active Directory to reset their password, or you need to reach out to the VPN service and unlock their account, or quick actions that analysts can take to potentially solve the problem. Look at this. I've got remote control as an example in there. Oh, I need to remote control their computer. Well, let's not have it in a separate tool. Or even if it's in a separate tool, that's okay. We can call that tool from inside of our Neurons for ITSM incident page here. So start thinking about some buttons that you would like to have here, as well as our buttons up here at the top. You can see like convert to request. That's a very common one. According to official ITIL, if they called up with a broken printer, that is an incident. But what if they called up and said, or they sent in an email rather, and said, I want a new mouse? Well, that's a request. You know, I don't want that to be in the incident bucket. I need to pick it up and move it over to the request bucket. So I've got a button right there to say convert to request, close and resolve the incident, open a new request for that particular user. Or integrate with third parties. You know, we can integrate with third-party tools. You know, here's a couple of examples. Sprocket's like a facilities management tool. Jira is a, they have ITSM, but it's also a, issue tracking tool. We can integrate with those systems where maybe we need to pass this information over. This needs to be a Jira ticket, not a ITSM ticket. So let's convert all the details over to Jira, and then when it's finished, maybe they need to send it back over to us. This example is kind of showing one direction. If I click on it, it says, okay, I'm going to send this information over to Jira. If you want to, we can receive that information back. We've got a robust API that they can call into us to change the status or resolve it or whatever makes sense there. And then lastly, here in our menu, we've got lots of items under our quick actions. So we won't go through all those details, but there's plenty of times where you need to say, hey, close this incident or change it or apply one of those templates that we had. Maybe halfway through I realized, oh yeah, you're right, this was just a simple account reset. Let me go and apply a template at this point. So lots of goodies that we have over there on the side. All right, right here you can see I can take ownership and I can resolve the incident and things like that. But let's go tweak this a little bit. Let's pretend that it's not a printer error, but they can't access email. That's the issue that the user is having today, right? Just in our pretend example. So in this case, urgency and impact are probably not going to be low and low, right? Let's say for argument's sake, impact is high and urgency is high. So it's now set as a priority 1 incident, and it actually turned red. We've got a rule there that says if it's set to priority 1, change it to red, just so that it's a little bit more visually noticeable. And then this button showed up. This button was not there before, and it says declare as a major incident. I'm going to go push that. And the idea behind this is we are going to create a parent-child relationship. So a major incident, again, in the analogy of a house being on fire, it's the whole neighborhood's on fire. In my example, if I've got someone calling in and saying they can't access email, well, I just got a second phone call. You know what? Jim called. So look, I've got an affected user button. I'm going to type in Jim. Yep, he called in with that same problem. Oh, just hung up with Jim, picked up another call, and Bill's having the same problem. So what's happening when I'm saying adding affected user? Behind the scenes, we now have a major incident, this major incident 12161. However, if we go click on the related incident, you can see we have created child incidents that live underneath that are linked up to the parent. A lot of organizations choose to, when they resolve the parent, it will go back and resolve all the child tickets as well and get them all closed out. But you can choose how that workflow works, but that's a very common one. So now, just when users are calling in, yep, add affected user, you're going to have a bunch of child. When you close the parent, bam, everything downstream gets resolved. So that's a very common workflow that we set up for our users. You can see I've also got a button here now to view it in Jira now that I've actually sent it over to Jira. So if I clicked on that, it would pick me up and take me over to the Jira workspace, and I'd be able to see it over there. All right, so I've got a problem now. I've got this issue. I've got all these users complaining about email. They can't access their email. What am I going to do? Well, in proper ITIL format, I would go and say, well, maybe I need to create a task for something. If it was simple, if this was a simple problem that, maybe someone just needs to reboot a server. I don't know, maybe that fixes our problem. So I could say, reboot the Exchange server, and that will fix the issue. So I can go create a task here. I can say what team needs to do it. In this case, it's IT. The service is probably not printing, right? It's probably the mail service that we need to associate it with. I happen to know that Gary is the person that is in charge of our Exchange server. So I've now created a task for him to go and, actually create that. That's just kind of an ad hoc thing, though. That's a human going in and creating that task. We're going to talk about how we can automatically create tasks a little bit later as well. But I want to go and do some root cause analysis, and that is problem management. That is trying to say, why did the fire start? Why is this happening, and how can we solve this problem? So I'm going to go create a new problem from here. What is the problem? We can't access the email. Maybe we're getting, error message 57 when that error comes up. I don't have a resolution. I cannot solve this problem right now. But you know what? I've got a workaround. Reboot 3 times. If you reboot 3 times, that's a temporary workaround. That's a horrible workaround. I don't want that long term. But you know what? I've at least got a workaround. And you saw when we were doing the related item search earlier in the demo, I could then blast this workaround out to my users to give them a temporary fix for the time being. What is the status? In this case, it's going to be logged. Which category is it going to be under? In this case, let's say it's applications. Where did the source come from? Oh yeah, in this case, it came from an incident. In my example, impact and urgency are high. Email is super important to us as a business, so it's going to set the priority to 1. It's going to go over to problem management, and Angela is going to be in charge of that. So now we've identified that problem. We need to do root cause analysis. So someone is now digging through log files. They are looking at the server, whatever makes sense, calling the vendor, etc. And they're going to come back and they're going to say, oh yeah, no, your problem is you need to install a service pack. You need to do some kind of patch or some kind of upgrade. So you might come in here and say the resolution is, install service pack 9. That's what's going to happen to solve our particular problem. But let's actually go to that problem. We were just looking at it in a kind of a reference view when we were still under the major incident. So you can see I've got these tabs up here at the top of all the individual items that we have. So when I click on it, it's going to go and open that up in a new tab so I can have multiple pieces of information in front of me. So here's that problem. It's in our production environment. Again, we said it's priority 1. Turns out, root cause. The root cause is a software defect, and the resolution is that we need to install Service Pack 9. So we found out that there's a problem in the code. We need to apply a service pack to fix this. We could blast that workaround to our users as a temporary component, but we're just going to ignore that for now. So I know what to fix. I need to install the service pack on my Exchange servers. Now what? Well, that's what change management is, right? So we're going to go to the change tab up here at the top, and I'm going to say I'm going to create a new change. So here, the change is going to be to upgrade Exchange Service Pack 9. So that's the information of what I'm going to do. You can see I have a start date. I've got an end date. Things around like what is it, a major, a minor. In this case, it's probably like an emergency change. It's currently in the requested status. The sponsor is going to be AJ Fielding. You can see we have like a CAB for a change advisory board. Change advisory board is a great thing in larger organizations. In smaller organizations, not necessarily. So we'll help you tweak this system to maybe get rid of the CAB or even just shrink down the way that functions. Down here at the bottom, same thing with release. Maybe release is too much for you. I found that if you're, I don't know, there's not a perfect number, but let's say for argument's sake, you're under 2,000 users, release management might be too burdensome for you, unless you're a big DevOps shop. So we might take it away and shrink that information down. If you're larger than that or you're a big DevOps shop, great, release is right there. We can absolutely go and use it. So let's go ahead and save that change that we've created. Same kind of thing, let's go to that change. Don't just look at it from the preview view as it's relinked over into the problem. But here I have my actual change itself. So we already decided it's an emergency, impact and urgency. Let's go change that and set that back to high, our CAB information. Here is the example. This is not out of the box. We have stolen several items from release management. Rollout strategy, rollback plan, things like that. All of those, according to ITIL, are release management stuff. I've stolen those, shoved them right in here into the change. If you don't like that, fine. We can have release live in its own universe as its own module if you choose. Let's go over here to the service itself. So we've linked in the printing service because that's where we originally started. But let's go find something better real quick. We are going to link in a service of what we're offering out to the business, right? So here I've got an enterprise application just as an example to get you thinking about it. Why would I link over to the service? What benefits are that going to give me? Well, what happens is when we are trying to understand better about like what the change is going to affect or where it's going to come in, now you can see I understand if there's like a lockout window coming up. Hey, I can't do this upgrade this upcoming weekend. Some big conference is happening, or here's the standard change window. I should be doing it every other Saturday, during this 4-hour window. So if you link into the service, that particular service understands its lockout window, its change windows, all those kinds of things are connected to it. And same kind of thing, we can go to that service and better understand how it works. Is it weekly hours of operation? Is it 24/7? Is it in production? Is it in test dev? What kind of service is it? What is our availability that we're trying to shoot for? What category does it fall under? Lots of cool things like that to tell us more about this particular service. If I click on the CI map right here, what you're going to see is a connection of those CIs on the back end. These are the service dependencies. So in my example here, you can see I've got a bunch of different devices. And maybe I'm upgrading a SQL server just for argument's sake. And I'm just a SQL DBA. I'm just going to go and reboot that server as part of the upgrade, right? Well, did you know that if you reboot that, it affects all of these upstream services? You can see these little lines in between. It may be hard to read, but it says, depends on or runs on or integrates with or things like that. So now I can understand impact analysis. What were to happen if I were to reboot this SQL server? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it going to impact other things? Oh, I didn't know it was going to impact your stuff. That's what change management is all about, trying to lower our risk associated with service level impacts. So now I can better understand, oh yeah, I can't upgrade that server at this time because it's connected to something else. So back over here at the actual service itself, again, we can go look at the change windows that we have applied to it or any lockout windows that you have applied to that particular service. So we're going back to the change itself. What about this risk level? Well, geez, risk is subjective. Well, I know that people that jump out of perfectly good airplanes with parachutes strapped to their backs, I might consider that incredibly risky, but they don't. So risk is unfortunately subjective. So we've got a cool little questionnaire that we're going to ask you here so we can try and take some of that subjectivity out of it. Okay, has this change ever been performed in the past? No, I've never done this Exchange Service Pack 9 upgrade. Can it be tested? Oh, I can't test. I don't have a test and exchange environment, so I got to say no to that. So you can see, just go through and ask these questions. Again, we're going to work with you on what these questions are. These are the out-of-the-box versions of it. But as you go and change that, it's going to then go and set our risk level based on our questions that we've answered there. So again, taking that subjectivity out of it, based on my answers, the risk level to this particular change is going to be high. So now you've seen a lot of the logic. We started out with an incident. We troubleshot that particular problem. That got escalated over to a major incident. We linked that major incident over to a problem. We went and did root cause analysis on that problem to try and determine what the issue was. We determined what the issue was. We needed to make a change. We linked that over to our change. We optionally linked that to a release if we want to go that far, or we just use the stolen components of release management we've adopted into our change management here. And we've affected that change, and we've potentially gone full circle and resolved that particular incident. So that's a very common workflow of, you can see that we don't live in silos. These individual components of ITIL are supposed to talk to each other, supposed to mesh together. That's how we're going to improve our process long term, is being able to relate to these other objects instead of just having them live, essentially over in a silo. All right, so that's what it looks like from an analyst perspective. I want to go and switch gears here for a little bit and show you what it looks like from an end user's perspective. They're using this tool as well, and oftentimes we forget about that, but we've really got to focus on addressing those end user needs. So we're going to switch over to an analyst view, but I'm going to do one thing before that. I'm going to go turn on my chat up here. So me as an analyst is going to say, yep, I'm now ready and able to receive any chats incoming. So let's switch over to our user's perspective. Okay, so here we are on an end user's desktop. I have transitioned. I am no longer an analyst at our fake company, but I am just a regular end user. So they're a big user of this, right? We've got to make sure that we adapt to their thinking. Far too many times have you heard that we're the Department of No, and our boss is the CI No, right? Your average user doesn't necessarily have a great opinion of the way that IT works. So we need to make sure we really understand their perspectives and make sure we adapt the tool to make their lives easier. So here we are in the self-service portal. I've gone and logged in, and our out-of-the-box actually breaks out 3 different modules. We've been talking a lot about ITSM today, but in reality, our platform is a true enterprise service management platform. Things like HR and facilities, we have those built in out of the box. You know, a clogged toilet, that's just a facilities incident. Somebody want to change their 401k, that might be an HR request. So if you want to grow inside the organization, a great way to do that is usually once we've got ITSM kind of handled, we start with that a lot of times, then we try and build a bridge to those other business units. Hey, did you know we've got this cool tool? We could let our users go to a single place to get services from the business. It's a great way to reach out to those other departments and maybe try and knock down some of that department of no that we might have the bad reputation. But that's your choice. You can either turn those modules off or you can collapse them all down to a single place, whatever makes the most amount of sense for you. Let's go click on IT services though. So you're going to brand this, or more specifically, we are going to help you brand it. We're going to put your colors, your logos on it. A lot of our customers even give it a name. It's like, you know, my support or something like that, or a variant on their company's name. Those are all great. Anything we can do to make it feel like we're really truly adapting to your business is going to go a long way. Up here at the top, you can see we've made those announcements. You know, maybe there's an outage or there's a problem coming up or something like that. I can talk to my users there. I've got a search box here in the middle. What's great about the search box is it's an omni search. A typical end user, they don't know what a service request is. An incident, problem management, they don't know any of that stuff. So we've rebranded it. Look, it's, you know, a frequently asked question or a Q&A or an announcement. Sometimes that might land a little bit easier for our users to be able to understand. Down here at the bottom, you can see I've got popular requests. I can open up an incident. I can open up the service catalog, look at my existing incidents. I've apparently got a few here. Common knowledge base articles, news and announcements. You as the administrator, you get to tweak exactly what this page looks like. You don't like it? Great, let's throw it away, or let's create it differently, or whatever makes sense. Let's go and open up an incident. I'm going to click on that raise an incident right here. So again, you as an administrator, you're going to control this form. So you may or may not want to ask all the questions that I'm going to ask as part of this. But you can see I've copied over that same thing where I can open on behalf of someone else. Maybe they don't have a computer. Maybe they're working on a manufacturing floor and we don't issue them a computer, so I need to open on behalf of them or something like that. The service, you may or may not want to ask your user what the service is. They may not know what that is. Same thing with category. These may be fields that you do not select. But watch what happens when we say printer error 57. That same related item search happens. So I can show the user the various things that I have out there. Hey, look, I've got a document that has this problem. I could resolve it from here. So I don't expect every user in the entire world to use self-service and solve their own problems, but any one of those we can. If we can just shave off 5%, 10%, you know, that really adds up in the long term of number of calls we didn't actually have to pick up. So I'm just going to go back. I'm actually not going to open up that incident. Let's go and use this Omni search one more time, though. Let's search for Outlook. Like we said, it's great at searching the different places that we have here. You know, I've got an announcement up here, or how to create a PST, something like that. So here, in my frequently asked questions, I'm trying to understand more about what's happening. How do I add a second monitor, connect to a projector, various things like that. And then those, we can put the most popular versions of those here on our knowledge articles for common meetings if we want to. So we go click on this, we can show our knowledge base. Know that you can have very rich articles. Like here's an example of one that has a YouTube video embedded inside of it. You know, we're a no-code platform. You're not having to write the HTML code or JavaScript for this, but it's very easy to add some rich text in here. Down at the bottom, you can see I can rate this article. I can say whether it's helpful or not. I can put in a comment, you know, this did not work for me. One of the best ways to enrich your knowledge management is to solicit feedback from your users. If you're not soliciting feedback, we don't know if it's helpful at all. So you can turn this off. If you choose to not have ratings and so forth on, great, you can do that. But I really enjoy the feedback that it gives us as part of that. There's also a couple of other things we can do around like deep linking. So deep linking gives us the ability to send a command essentially to the workstation. Watch really close when I click on this. What happens? I'm trying to tell the user to open up devices, printers and scanners, and when they click on it, what happens? Printers and scanners open. So that's a fancy Microsoft deep link that we can take them to a control panel item to help them solve their problem from there if we have the ability to solve their problem. There's also other things like, how do I request a standing desk? Well, you know what? That's not technically a knowledge base article, right? It's a request offering, but the user doesn't know that. So I'm going to show you how we could pick them up out of here. Watch, we open up a new tab and we drop them over into the request offering module under the new office equipment, asking them, what do you want? And you want a standing desk. So the user didn't know that that happened. I led them all along that journey, hopefully made it easier for our users to be able to see that. If I want to look at my existing tickets, I can click on it right here. I apparently have a lot of them with this particular user, but I can understand more about what I was asking for. What is the status? What's our progress in it? Things like that. So you saw I could raise an incident right here. I also have the ability to chat with support. And this little chat bubble, I don't have to have it on this page if I don't want to. I can have it show up somewhere else. But, here, let me drag it over to the side a little bit so you can see. I can chat with it and I can say, hi, I can't print. I am getting error 57 or something like that. So now I would chat back and forth with an analyst. Maybe I don't want to pick up the phone. I don't want to send an email. I want to chat. Great, we support the ability for you to do that. We also have integration with Teams. If I want to have this same kind of interaction happen over in a Teams chat, I have the ability to integrate with that as well. So on a web page or via Teams, the chatting functionality can go and happen. All right, so those are all the ways that I can use the self-service portal, but oftentimes I just want to use my email, right? Some users love email, and we're just not going to convince them otherwise, right? So that's okay. We're going to support that. So let's open up our email here really quick. Sorry, we're just going to close out of that. So I'm going to say, let's send a new email. So we're going to have an email address box that is going to listen for your incoming incidents, and that user is going to come back and say, hi, I can't print or something like that. Whatever that message is going to be, they're going to send that off, and we're going to open up a ticket on their behalf. We've got a couple of samples already created here. And so as you can see, this is the email that we got back from our system. And I've done a little bit of work to gussy this up. I've got some colors on here. I put like my Facebook link on the bottom. Our out of the box emails are a little bit dry. There's a lot of text. Like for example, this. Do you remember a little bit ago when we asked our user to reboot and we CC'd the accounting department as part of that? It's a pretty plain text message here. I like to spend the time investing in making it look prettier so that it just feels like it's a lot more professional system. So I would highly recommend you spend a little bit of time on prettying that up. But if I wanted to, I could just reply to this email. What about self-service? I don't know anything about that. I don't want to go learn that. I did reboot and it did not fix it. So remember, I can do everything right from email if I choose, versus going into self-service versus picking up the phone and calling. All of those are available to you as options. You just determine what's the best fit for your particular users. Okay, let's go and ask for something. I want something in my organization. I want a new laptop, or I want something like that. So what I'm going to do here is open up the catalog. These are all the things that are provided to me as a service, right? These are our request offerings. So the request offerings can be things like I want a piece of hardware, I want a new laptop or desktop, or they could be I want a access to a distribution list, or I want to connect a VPN. I'm having an issue with a particular piece of software. Maybe I want a new mobile device or something like that. So whatever needs to be created, we're going to help you create them. This is just to get you thinking about it. So let's go ask for a new hardware request from the product catalog. So the product catalog, again, we've made some asset management videos. There's some links to them about what a product catalog is, but it's essentially our standards catalog. All of the things that your organization has as standards. A lot of companies say, these are our 3 laptops and these are our 3 desktops. Those are the ones we standardize on, that kind of thing. When we open it up, you can see it already knows who I am. It knows who my manager is. So now if I need to ask for an approval or something like that, we already know who that's going to be. What is the asset type? We've got several different asset types. We've got computer, consumable, infrastructure, things like that. I'm going to say computer is my type. Subtype, we've got a lot of subtypes, and these are very varied out there. Maybe it's a laptop or a desktop, or I was helping out a customer and they had something that attached to a water pressure meter. They wanted to have that as a subtype. Very easy to go and add these kind of subtypes. Now I'm going to go click on laptop. Let's just say we want a laptop. Now, you're not going to give your users access to everything. In my example, every user can access for everything. So you're probably not going to give them a list of 37 different laptops like I have here. but I am now showing all of the laptops that my account has privileges to that exist as standards in my standard catalog that are currently set in production. If we've like retired them and we don't use them anymore or something like that, we'll put them in a state that they just simply don't show up in this list. So I'm a regular user and I want something. Oh yeah, look at this. An HP EliteBook 840 G1. That is exactly what I want. That looks amazing to me. So I'm going to check that box. Over here on the side, you can see we have a shopping cart mentality where we actually have like a dollar amount. This comes in handy for whenever we need to do things like approvals. Maybe you've created a concept in your organization. If it's over $500, you've got to get an approval. Great. We can now create that as rules and logic so that when you request it, it's over a certain dollar amount, it's got to kick off a workflow to ask someone else for an approval. Maybe you want to ask for things like a non-standard request. I can check this box. Please paint it pink. Okay, so maybe a non-standard request is not a great idea, but you can change what this form looks like. You don't want them to put in non-standard requests? Great, let's go turn that off and adapt it to what makes sense for you. So I can hit review and submit, and then submit it. That's going to be in my shopping cart. Most users understand the concept of a shopping cart. I can buy multiple things, and then I could submit that shopping cart for all the things I'm going to get. Let's go jump over here really quick, though. I want to go over to HR. So I've gone and asked for a laptop. The beauty of being on the end user side here is my job's done. I don't have to do anything else. Everyone else has to do all the hard work. So we're going to circle back in a minute to see all that work that it got created from that. But for now, you at least say it's easy for our users. Let's talk about one of the most popular request offerings that we create for our users, and that's new employee onboarding. New employee onboarding is a real mess. Think about it. First of all, we don't start it. HR usually starts it. Then it's a very complicated series of events that need to happen in a very particular order. IT has to create their account, but you can't create their email until you've created their account first, and you can't create their payroll account until their email account's created, which their account has to be created first. So it's a series of things you have to do in order. Some things humans have to do. Issue them a key card and hand them the key card. Well, I can't automate everything, right? There's some things I have to create as individual tasks. So onboarding an employee and offboarding an employee are very, very common request offerings. They're usually the very first things we start with because it's multiple departments, multiple complicated workflows associated with it. Another reason to reach out to these other departments. Hey, wouldn't it be great to reach out to HR and say, you've got a fancy HRIS system like Workday or UltiPro. Why don't you call us with an API to kick off this workflow? I'm going to show you crawling in a maturity model of crawl, walk, run. Crawling is a human doing all the work by hand. Running would be like a specially crafted email. Maybe your HRIS tool can email us, and the first line is the first name, the second line is the last name, the third line is the department, the fourth line is the email address or whatever. We can interpret that. But the running version where I want you to get is an API. They call our REST API, we call back to their REST API, and the system does it all automatically. But again, we're showing crawl. Very, very manual. I want you to start at this, refine your process, and then start walking, and then start running. So who are we going to go and hire here? Let's go and hire Brian Hotzik. What department is he going to be in? Let's put him in our corporate IT department. He's going to be our new CIO. Full-time, part-time. Oh yeah, that's a full-time position here. Start date's tomorrow. It's the 16th, so I'm going to go pick the 17th, right? Why can't I pick the 17th? Is something wrong? Why can't I pick it? Oh, what do you know? Look at that at the bottom. Minimum 2 weeks lead time. Don't you understand that we create these processes all the time and saying we need 2 weeks of notice for new employees, right? And then we end up not getting it, right? Now the tool can enforce that process. The tool is the bad guy making us get 2 weeks notice. Now, we all know that's not going to solve every one of the problems, but at least it's going to nudge that problem in a better direction that we're getting better and better about notice for new employees hiring. So I'm going to pick 2 weeks out, just like the field level constraint is going to force me to. What location am I going to? Let's go to the Moscow office. I hear it's lovely this time of year. Do I need a cubicle? Do I need an office? Oh yeah, a cubicle or an office. You can see it can increase the dollar amount if we chose to. Do they need a computer? Yes, they do. What happened when I checked the box of computer? It unlocked another drop-down box that previously was hidden that I can pick. Oh yeah, they need a desktop and a notebook, and they need an ultra portable, and do they need a second monitor? Oh yeah, they need this XYZ second monitor, or do they need a mobile phone, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see we can go through and check all these various boxes. I'm going to show you how admins set this up later. They don't do it with programming. It's all just kind of drag and drop. And I've got my shopping cart over here saying all the things that we need to do to hire that particular person. So again, this is manual. This is crawling. I want you to grow up to walking where your HRIS tool emails this, because HR knows when these hires are happening, right? That's their thing, not our thing. And then the running version is an API. They call our API, we fill all this out for them, and then they just see the individual tasks. And then perhaps there's something at the end. As soon as we're done with all our tasks, we call back to your HRIS tool with our API and tell it like the status has been updated, that all tasks have been completed or something like that. And then HR can kind of recognize that and move on. So the user's going to go and review and submit this, and they're going to send it on its way. They don't have to worry about it because it's going to be taken care of by the actual request offering workflow on the back end. All right, so that's what you kind of see from an end user's perspective. Let's switch back over to an analyst view, and let's see all the work that got created from all of these requests. All right, so here we are back at our analyst desk. We're going to now look at all the work that user created in terms of submitting all of those request offerings. So here we have all the various request offerings in our queue that we've got to go work on. You can see, like, for example, there's our new employee setup that came across from April. So as we scroll through here, you can see we've got some different information. All of those same attributes are now stored in this request offering, and I need to go and start working them. Well, in my pretend organization here, several things happen during this workflow, and we create tasks for them. So you can see now I've got several tasks that have been spit out and created from this request offering. Now, how is that? Where did that come from? What is the logic behind that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go and dig into how we create these. So a lot of what you're going to see, the power behind the system, is in the next couple things I'm going to go and show you. So let's go and open up our new employee onboarding. This is the setup of the request offering. This first page, it's a lot of metadata and the name of it and so forth. But right here we have our designing of our request form. So this is where I'm going to ask that user question. You should recognize this. This is what the user saw when they opened up and they clicked on it. Remember, we're talking about crawling, a human inputting this. I'd like to grow to walking and running with emails and APIs, but right now we're still focusing on manual. But you know what? I don't like this form. I don't like middle name. We don't use middle name in my organization. I want to get rid of it. So look, got a little X right there. I've got rid of middle name. We are a no-code platform. This is something very, very important. There's a lot of other tools out there that are great ITSM tools, as long as you go hire 12 developers to develop against it. We don't want you to have to go and hire a bunch of professionals to just maintain the system and do common adds, moves, and changes. Adding a field, subtracting a field, that is not re-architecting the platform from the ground up. We just want to make that very easy for you to do. So I've gone and got rid of the middle initial, or maybe I want to change the way these are ordered or something like that, or I want to ask another question. I want to ask something, so I'm going to drag a text area over here. Maybe I want to ask for, I don't know, their hair color. So as simple as that, I can now request another attribute coming from that user. Maybe I want to drag over a date time selector or have an image or something like that. All those are options available to me. But the real exciting part is right here. This is going to be the actual workflow that kicks off as part of this request offering. Now, our system on the back end uses workflows for a lot of things, where, you know, most of our incidents go through a workflow. So when we make statements like, wouldn't it be great to send out a survey after the incident has been set to resolved, and then wait 3 days and then set it to closed? Things like that. Well, how do you create that kind of logic? Right here in a workflow. First of all, we've got to start and we've got to stop. Everything kind of starts and everything stops. And then the other things happen here in the middle. Again, just an example to get you thinking about it. Your workflow is going to be different. We're going to want to sit down with you and in the workshop, create what that workflow looks like. And you know what that is? That's a lot harder than you think. You know, because oftentimes you've got to get HR, facilities, payroll, all these people in a room, and we've got to arm wrestle on what the process is, write it down, and then go port it over into our tool. Don't start with the tool. Start with the process on a whiteboard, and then come bring it over to it. You're going to have a lot more success that way. Or on the left-hand side, I've got all the different things. You know, do I want to, for example, send out a notification? A notification is a fancy word for an email. So if I want to send out an email as part of the process, no problem. I can say, send email to facilities or whatever I want it to do. What do I want the subject to be? Please create a key card for, and then over here on the left-hand side, we have all of the fields that are available to me. So you can see I've got a field called first name. I can just go drag that over and drop in first name, or put it in the details, probably a better spot. Please create key card for user, and then down here I can say, first name and last name and all of the different attributes that I want to have as part of that. Up here I can say who we're going to. We've talked about it already. If you bring me rich data, I can use that. Maybe it's their manager, maybe it's the facilities department, maybe it's the actual person getting hired. I don't know the right answer, but we've got lots of different options for that. Perhaps you want to have an if block. So let's have an if here and say, okay, right after this, we're going to connect it down to our if. And we're going to open up our if and we're going to say, let's look at, I don't know, hair color. Is their hair color red? And if hair color equals red, okay, we need to go and do something that's true versus false. If it's, if it's true, maybe we need to go kick off another notification. I'm going to go connect those two together. Do you see how I'm not writing code here? Most people in IT that have a good understanding of just what a process is can drag and drop these things and can update these. Adds, moves, and changes is not pick up the phone and get a high-priced developer just to go and add a field for me. It's something that you should be able to do as part of this process. So that's what happens if it's true. If it's false, maybe I want to go over here and ask for, I don't know, an approval. So I can say, let's go get an approval. So let's connect it from false over here to approved. And I can open up that approval box and say, okay, ask for approval for expensive laptop. Maybe the user asked for a $4,000 laptop, so I've got to ask for permission. Here you can see, who are we going to ask? Are we asking the change advisory board? Are we asking the CISO? Are we asking, an individual user? Or is it related to the user? I want it to be their manager or something like that. So it doesn't have to be just a fixed person. It can be relative to who asked for it. Down at the bottom here, you can say things like, do they have a deadline? They've got 3 days. If we can't find any approvers, automatically approve it. Maybe you need to have a committee. Everyone has to approve it, or a certain percentage have to approve it, or if one person denies it, the whole thing falls apart. Anything you want from an approval perspective. Oftentimes, those more complicated approvals kick in when we're doing things like change management, where you might be asking the change advisory board, whereas a simple request like, can this user do VPN, might be just a manager approval, yes or no. Approvals are incredibly simple. Get sent out to the users an email, hey, and we would just write what that looks like. Bob's trying to access VPN, is that good? Yes or no? And they just click yes, or they click no, and the rest of it is taken over. One great thing about the Neurons for ITSM platform is we do not charge for approvers. There's lots of other ITSM tools out there that they ding you with a license cost just by simply sending out that email. Our licensing is really only based on if you own a ticket. So it's most likely only going to be people in IT, or if we get in over in things like HR and facilities, if they're going to own a ticket, then they're going to use a license as part of that. But no tickets or no licenses for approvers. All right, so now you can see lots of different goodies I have in here. I can do a wait. Maybe you want to have it say, okay, after we've sent out that approval, let's wait, 30 days. Maybe you want to send a onboarding survey 30 days after they start, and you're going to go send that over to HR to give HR feedback on how the onboarding process works and how we can improve it. So great, I can have it be a 30-day timer. Or one of these request offerings could be, I need a new virtual machine. It doesn't have to be just for our end users. It could be for people in IT. They're still users as well. We've got virtual machine sprawl where I call up and say, I want these 10 test VMs, and turns out 3 years later says, what are these for? Why are we paying for all this stuff? Maybe you want to have it be a request offering is, I want a virtual machine, and I'm going to set a timer. Every, 90 days, I'm going to wake up and email you and say, are these virtual machines still needed? And if you do not reply to it, I'm going to go and erase those. That's the kind of workflow that you could create, even for things outside of our end user support. We can go click into our Ivanti automation tool if we want to do all kinds of fancy stuff around, SSHing to Windows Server, talking to Office 365 to create the account, whatever that makes sense. Over here, we also have task. A task is a great thing for a human being to do. Let's say, for example, we had an approver here. If it was approved, we drag it down here, and we have the task to create their AD account. So that would be something a human would do. What team does that? Oh, well, IT or someone like that does that. There's our IT department's going to do it. And then we have all those, again, those fields over here exist on the side. Please create an account for, and then I would have, once again, the first name, the last name, what team they're going to show up on, all those kind of goodies show up there. So now I've created a task. Well, a human needs to go fulfill that task. And how they do that is they see it right here. Here's the 4 tasks that have been created, one for telco, one for IT, one for facilities. They would just go click on it and they'd say, yep, this one has been accepted, and I've gone and completed that particular task. So now that process would happen. Oh, I spent 25 minutes completing this particular task since I asked for my users for feedback on that. So now that task has been created. But let's, as we're maturing your service management, let's try and identify those tasks like creating an Active Directory account, ripe for automation. Let's have an automatic tool, like an API request to Azure Active Directory or something like that, or using our Ivanti automation to reach out to on-premise Active Directory to make those accounts happen. So we want to increase the automation, but you gotta start manually. That's how you have a lot of service management projects fail, is by saying we want to do it all and we want to have it all automatic. We really highly recommend starting slow, being great at a couple of things, and then expanding from there. All right, so you can see we have this great workflow that really powers a lot of the stuff on the back end and brings a lot of power to the system. But if you want to do more administrative functions, that's pretty straightforward as well. Let me crack open the back end really quick. I'm going to open up here and show you our business objects. All of the business objects are the schema of the database. So this gives us the ability to look and see what the actual schema looks like. So for example, I've got a CI object here. Well, that's a configuration item or an asset or whatever you want to call it. Maybe I want to go create a new field. We've got a lot of fields out of the box. Look, 166 fields, but for argument's sake, there's a field that you guys use. Maybe, I don't know, it's branch number. We've got location and all that kind of stuff, but maybe there's a numerical branch that this asset is at, and I need to know that. So we would just click Add New right there. What kind of field is it? In this case, probably a number would be the right field, or maybe text if it's not always going to be a number. Maybe we put letters in it sometimes. So I'm going to go and say branch number. And then I can say how long it's going to be. Is it going to be unique? Is it hidden from the UI, etc.? All the different options. So you as an administrator see that it's very simple to go and add fields to the system. And then if I wanted to go my forms or my layouts here, it would give us the ability to say, well, where does this look like on on the actual form itself? Then we also have business rules that can say, okay, when this gets triggered, let's go do something. Or when it was initially originated, let's wake up and maybe go modify a different field or tweak it or change it. So a combination of modifying the workflows, changing the way that our fields work, and then changing our business rules, we can bring a lot of power to what this kind of tool looks like when you're using it. Okay, so we've talked a lot about receiving that information from our users and being able to kind of run with it and process it. Well, a lot of customers, they want to know what's going on with the system, right? What's the reporting? What are the metrics? We can track all this data. What can we do with it? Now, if you're a tool administrator or you're a service desk person, you're right here in the tool. If you want to know what's going on with the service desk, you're going to probably go look at the service desk manager section here, or you're going to look at the survey dashboard to see all the surveys that I have coming back. We've got a couple of really cool tricks around surveys of things like keeping them simple, 1 to 5 stars, smiley face, frowny face. Don't ask 14 questions; they're not going to fill it out. So, try and keep them simple, and then I can display the results of all my surveys. A lot of customers, like we're describing, you set the ticket to resolved, you send out the survey, you kick off a timer for 3 days, and then you close it, or something like that. That's a common mechanism that we have there. But now I want to look at the survey results. Oh, look at how we're doing or how we're trending over time. But that's if you're using the tool on a day-to-day basis. What about everyone else? What about executives? What about the rest of the business? Well, that's where our product called Xtraciton comes in. So Xtraciton is our BI tool. You've probably used other tools like this. Power BI or Tableau or something like that. What's great about Xtraciton is there's no additional license cost with it, and we've already created all the connectors and all the logic associated with it. So if you want to use Power BI and you guys love it, great, go for it. There's nothing in our tool stopping you. Just know that we've kind of pre-built a lot of this out of the box so it can save some time. This is going to be very colorful, charts, graphs, high level. This is for executives. This is for people that don't get in the tool every single day. Show me my agent performance. I want to know more about our incident categorization or my incident trend over the last 30 days. And what you can do is like drag them down here into this box and say turn them on to cycle and refresh them. What's going to happen here is it's going to sit there and cycle through these dashboards. What I want you to do, I want you to buy a TV, hang it on the wall, get a Raspberry Pi hooked up to it, and put this web page on there and have it sit there and cycle through it. Now, is anyone going to stand in the hallway and stare at that monitor? No. What are we doing here? We are projecting to the business. I care. I keep track of these metrics. We are paying attention. It is broadcasting out to the organization that we are not a silly cost, just a cost sink. We are actually providing value to the business. So, have it sit there and cycle. I had one customer that had 18 monitors cycling through various things. We can actually look at other things outside of our Neurons for ITSM today if we want to look at our patching technology or asset management or really anything in the portfolio we can monitor. You can even buy a license to monitor other tools. You want to monitor your Cisco UCCX, your call center? Great, we can have this on dashboards as well. My boss keeps bugging me about these particular reports, so I'm going to go in here and click the little schedule button right here, and I can, have it automatically be sent out. I want to send it out as a PowerPoint. I like PowerPoint because every slide has its own, or every box has its own slide with a legend. I want it to go out, every single Monday in the morning and send out to an email or publish it to a file server because I want it to be on an intranet or something like that. So very easy to automate these reports, getting out to these people that care about it. Well, what if I don't like what I see here? I want something more advanced. So I'm going to go create my own dashboard. Down here at the bottom, you just pick which database you're going to connect to. Like I said, we can point at lots of different databases. You have to buy a license to point at these third parties like, CA or BMC or Cisco or things like that. But it is free of charge if you're pointing it at our own products like our service management we've been talking about today. So let's go expand it out. What should we focus on? Let's just do incident for now. All right, so 3 boxes. I don't like those 3 boxes. I want a little bit more data. So I'm going to go and say, I don't know, let's do that one right there. Big old long one on the side and then 4 squares. That looks great. That's exactly what I wanted. Let's go over here to the side. Let's do a group component. I want a pie chart based on whether it's active. Oh, that sounds great. I'm going to drag and drop that out there. Okay, next I want a bar graph based on, I don't know, what seems interesting in here. Bar graph based on the impact. And then next, I want to do a column chart based on whatever thing that I care about, priority. Perfect. There we go. So lots of just dragging and dropping. Again, I'm not writing code. I'm dragging and dropping. But if I want to say, ooh, I don't like that. You know what? We need to change what this impact looks like. I want to go and open this up. And I want to go change the filter. I don't want to do the last month. I want to add a date condition of the last quarter or next year, or whatever. So it can be a dynamic filter, it could be a fixed filter. Maybe you want to go in and remove certain things. You want to have a field condition only when the approver equals to something. Then I could have that particular filter applied to it as well. So very easy to go create that. Maybe I want to change the output. I want to have a different color or a different background, or hide the zeros or show the percentages, or I want a summary field, not just an individual field, or I want to do a count based on something. I can do all of that. So very easy to go and change what all of this looks like and change the way that the filters are applied to it. Like I said, you can also go and create additional lines. Maybe on this one, I want to have a line that says this is our target. Our target is 20, and then we can show how we're matching up against that. Let's have a red line be there, our target. Now I've got a line going across there and say, oh, yep, nope, our 3s, that is a problem. We are going past our target. I need to go worry about that. So I've created this great dashboard. I can then go save it and publish it. It can be for me personally. It can be for other people. Again, you already saw I can email it. I can get it sent out to all of my different people that care about it and so forth. So it's just a web page, so it's very simple to be able to interact and access. And like I said, there's no additional charge for you to go and display what the information looks like over here. Okay, so that was a quick run through of our Neurons for ITSM tool. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than even just what you saw today. This was meant to be a high-level overview to get you interested enough to have a personalized demonstration. I would love to show you and understand more about what your objectives are and see how we can match them to the tool. So please don't hesitate to hit us up to have a personalized demonstration. In order to do that, just please click the links down below. We'd love to get in contact with you. Thank you very much for your time today.